Hey guys, welcome to the Centre Bounce. Today we're talking about Angus Brashaw, not Andy, Angus, the delicious steak coming out from the Melbourne Demons. He's a defender at 550k. Let's go. Now, how cringe was that, Big J?
Oh, mate, that was pretty cringe. All the vegans that watch our show, all the vegetarians, they've just signed off. They've unsubscribed. We're going back down to 20 subs. Oh, mate, let's do it again.
I'm so sorry. Forgive me, guys. I promise. I think Angus meat is overrated anyway, but we're not here talking about that. We're talking about the player, the helmet. He's one of those leaders out of the Melbourne Football Club who really came off his best season, averaging 100 for the first time in his career. What did you think of his season last year?
It was interesting. He started off really cheap, but kind of had some, I guess, rocky start. Had a few low scores at the start. Halfway through the season, maybe after the buys, kind of kicked into gear. I think Melbourne realised, hey, we've got to do something. We might not be going back to back. And obviously they didn't. And then, his scoring kind of picked up.
Yeah, Melbourne were, I don't know, it looked like they were, again, going to be on their merry way, the clear team to beat, but it just didn't play out that way. I think a lot of teams got them figured out, and their forward line troubles continued. And when, for some reason, teams were able to really get a run on, and they ended up playing around with Angus Brashaw's positioning, and you could see that a lot of times the guys like playing on a wing sometimes, or playing a lot at half back, or playing in the middle or on the ball. Melbourne were really throwing the magnets all over the place on the whiteboard, trying to get something to stick and trying to get something to work. And that's what we ended up seeing, a bit of fluctuation in this guy's scoring, you know what I mean? But if you look overall between 2021 and 2022, he increased his average by 30 points.
Yeah, it's interesting, kind of. I think he's the older brother out of the Brashaws. I think Hamish is the oldest, and then it's him, and then it's Andrew. And for so long, he's kind of been the better player. And now, really, Andrew's kind of surpassed him. So maybe he goes back to the scoring, had a bit of fire under his belly, and he's going to pick up again in 2023. We'll just wait and see. As you say, they did move him around quite a lot. Seems to be that kind of player that will play anywhere they need him and do quite well in those positions. It's interesting because I remember a couple of years ago, he's been up for contract. He's always been that player at Melbourne that's, hey, can we poach him out of the side? Is he best 22 for a while? That kind of thing. And they've really stuck with him. They've really said, hey, you're in our future. We paid a bit extra to keep you in the side. We're going to try and make you best 22. And obviously that's what we've seen in the second half of the year.
And not just best 22, but really feature more on the ball in the midfield. I think that sort of role is what he really wants to embrace and really thrive in. He is quite a strong contested player and happy to throw his body around. And I think there was a lot of discussions, is he going to stay? Is he going to go somewhere else to get that midfield role that a lot of teams, Essendon were one of those teams that we were hoping to really try and, we're trying to lure him out of Melbourne basically and give him, look, you're going to be the number one midfielder or you're going to be in the number one rotation because, that Melbourne midfield is insanely good, isn't it? So when he was given some responsibility, he still managed to score some really big ones. I mean, he had 5 monster scores over 120, and he had 7 scores between 100 and 120, with 1 score in the 90s and 4 in the 80s. So it wasn't like he was consistently getting over 100 or consistently getting 120s, and that's as we mentioned, because of his changing roles. But there were times where he would play at half back and still pump out a really big score. I mean, the thing with him, it's really weird. You look at his heat maps, which we're going to do in a minute. He's all over the shop in terms of where he's getting the ball, and his scoring is fluctuating depending on the week. It definitely raises more questions than it does answer.
Yeah, he seems to be one of those players as well. We've spoken off camera about it, but one of the guys who really needs high disposal numbers to do quite well. But even some games where he has them, he just kind of doesn't perform as well as other games. I don't know if it's like his dodgy kick kind of screws up a scoring chain, or he passes to someone and they screw it up, that kind of thing. He doesn't get the follow-on points. But for a guy that seemingly has a lot more, kicks than behinds, kicks than handballs. He really doesn't. It doesn't expose. It doesn't exploit the scoring as much. Just an example, like round 18 last year, he's got a 77, and he only had 20 disposals. The week after that, and then in round 22, he had 38 disposals. So almost hitting the 40 mark, and he scored like 10 points more at a 113. So it's really interesting, kind of the dynamic of his scoring, and maybe it is the team faulting him not getting the follow on, or something kind of more underlying there.
Yeah, I guess now might be a good idea to have it to showcase those heat maps, because it is just to try and give you an idea of why it's really hard to really grasp this guy, and for us to tell you 100%, yeah, go for him or not go for him. This is in round 18 where he played predominantly at half back, and you can see the heat map. It's really concentrated there, but he had a really big score. Whether or not this is because of his role that he had on the day, or because he was playing in Geelong at GMHBA Stadium, really small, skinny ground, really had it condensed, and he could really see where the ball was going, which led to him getting so much of the ball there. You go the next week, he scored a 70-odd score that game. And you can see he's playing deep in defense and on the wings. And then all of a sudden, the next week, he's playing like a defensive mid-role, but also helping out in halfback. And then the next week, he's playing almost half forward, but on the wing there. And then the next week, he's on the ball. They're attending center bounces. And then the next week, he's all over the wings, probably playing again like maybe a ruck rover sort of thing, because he's really he got some of the ball in the middle as well. And then here he's more predominantly on this one wing here. Like, you just look at this guy's positioning, and none of these heat maps that I've showed are the same. No two are the same. This one's a little bit similar.
He's really their Mr. Fix-It type player, the guy that can play anywhere. I guess he can't play full forward because we haven't seen any evidence of that in the forward line. But if he's behind the ball, it's good. If he's in that transition position, bringing the ball from the defense to the forward line, it's good. But as you say, you can kind of play everywhere. And for a guy that, hey, they might say in the training reports he's playing half back, we can't really take on and say that's a good scoring role for him.
Exactly. And I know that they are saying that there were reports that he's going to play more in the mids this year. But, Salem might not be 100% ready to go for round one. And there are reports that he might help cover and have some half-back rotations there. There's also reports that Lockie Hunter has been attending CBAs and match simulations over there as well. And could that also mean that he could have some wing rotations? He's really at that weird price point where it's similar to Houston, where you could go down to a Young or Dacos and be more assured of their role, or go up to an Uber and again be sure of their role. Whereas he's in that middle bracket, that awkward price point, and there is no certainty around exactly what sort of Brashaw we're going to get next year. It's really hard. There's a lot of question marks really hanging over this pick.
Yeah, and like you say, that awkward price point as well. He's priced at 100. Last year was the first time he ever averaged 100 in his career. So where do you go from that? There's no value. It's not like he scored 100 last year and he's priced at like a 95. You've got that tiny bit of wiggle room for him to have good games and then come in, or him to have bad games and, not hurt you as much with other people trying to bring him in. At that price, it's almost just like there's better options.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. And that's why he is not in my current side. He's definitely someone that I'm going to keep an eye on as the season plays out, whether or not he gets given a lot more responsibility in the midfield, with reports that, Clayton Oliver's his thumb still isn't 100%. If that means that he gets given some more responsibility in the midfield this year, to help shoulder some of that load. That's definitely something I'm going to keep an open mind about and keep my eye on. But at this point in time, I think there are other options that are either better value or have less question marks. What about yourself?
Similar with me. With a lot of teams now, I've kind of seen a big trend of going super cheap in the back line. A lot of teams are running 2 guys who you would consider to be premiums and like an Elliot Yeo, and then, 3 mid-prices or 3 cheapy rookies, that kind of thing. There's just no space for it. If it was last year and we were going 6 or 5 deep in the back line, they were all around the 500K mark or a little bit less. You could kind of make a case for, hey, bringing him in as a speculative pick. But when most teams are running 1 or 2 or 3, that's even outside of having an uber primo guy, 600K player. There's just no space for him in my team.
Yeah, and if you're really looking for someone at this price point, you really don't want to go uber primo, and you don't want to go anymore. Personally, at this price point, I'd back in Adam Saad. I think Saad is a better value proposition, and there's it's visible, in terms of the Williams injury and what that means for his scoring output. Could go 110. So personally, I'm going to stay away from Brashaw.
Young or Dacos, or half a dozen other players who are a little bit cheaper as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, guys, thanks for watching. This was our discussion on Angus Brashaw, the helmet-wearing defender moving into the midfield, hopefully, potentially. Who knows what the hell happens at Melbourne this year. Player, please like, share, subscribe. We're pumping out the content. We're going to be doing a lot of your team reviews next week as well. So, please stay tuned for that. Any final words, Big J?
Just keep along with the subscribing, guys. And if you like our content, we jump us on Twitter, putting up lots of updates at the moment of kind of what's going out. I'm putting a lot of videos on Premiere as well, so you're not shocked of, hey, what's the next video coming out? You can look forward to those kind of things. So keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, exactly. And join our group. The link to the video will be in the description. Try your hand at winning a jersey with a number of your choice on the back. And if you don't get that, there's a couple of tickets to a game and an AFL store voucher as well. So please, guys, come along for the ride. The fun's only just beginning.
Yeah, 100%. And remember, guys, here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you don't have to. Bye for now.